it's a moronic rock star. It turns out it was moronic.
I did say moronic.
But I was very interested in Victor's relationship with his father, who was somebody that was very invested in legacy, very invested in perfection. And despite knowing how much that hurt him as a child, he seems to reproduce the same relationship with the creature. Did you have discussions about whether that pattern was somewhat inevitable?
We did. That's how we kind of came to it together and synchronized, speaking about our own experiences. But yeah, that's that idea, and I think as a father, that fear that just happens where your child becomes just an extension of you, either in failure or in triumph, and the humiliation or the pride that comes from treating a child as an object, and so the fact that, you know, and that is quite a departure from the book, because in the book Victor has quite a doting father, and so kind of really keying into the circle, as you spoke of, like the circle, these patterns that he becomes blind to it. The creature, he doesn't even see him as his son. He sees it as just an extension of his triumph or his failure. And so it allows him to treat him with such cruelty because he just it's treating himself that way. And so the journey to get to have his, you know, this version of himself, perhaps this child, his abused self that he recreates, has to chase him down into the Arctic to come and have a conversation with him and ultimately forgive him.
But also, there's a lot through the years, decades of reading about Mary Shelley and the Romantics, and there's a lot of biography of Shelley in the book, and there's a lot of biography of Shelley in this. She had a terribly tense relationship with her father. Her last two books are basically about tyrannical father figures, and I tried to pack as much as possible in that, and at the same time do it differently. Shoot the construction of a creature like a waltz, like a joyous moment, as opposed to horror and all that. So if you read about the war, how it influenced the Romantic movement, Waterloo, one of the most beautiful poems Byron ever wrote was about Waterloo. So there's a lot of things that are there that if you know Gothic romance and the Romantics and all that, you'll spot more stuff.
I want to get to you, Mia, because Elizabeth has such a complex and special relationship between Victor, his brother, and the creature. Can you talk a little bit about what you thought of that character and how you felt her place was in that web of relationships when you read the script?
What I thought of the two characters? I mean, Elizabeth is, I struggled a lot, actually. When I landed in Toronto, I felt very green and just like a baby, really. I just was so scared. And that fear never left, and I was constantly trying to push that fear down, and I was trying all sorts of things, and nothing, and it's just, I was just so scared the whole time, and I just kept thinking to myself, it's Guillermo, and he has his opportunity to make Frankenstein, and how amazing is that, and I get to be a part. I mean, I was just in my head all the time, and then eventually I just, I just had to work with what I was being handed, and those were the feelings that I was being given, and I just eventually decided that I had to work with that. And whilst there, I would say, there was, Oscar is a very singular actor. I was incredibly excited to work with him, and I've been a fan of his work for a very long time, but essentially he was playing an island, and I found it difficult to reach him at times, and I found that quite frustrating. Although occasionally he would build bridges towards me, and we would have moments of connection, and I was grateful for that. But ultimately, it was beneficial for the work, and I think there's such a kindness to Jacob that like regardless of like all the prosthetics that he is under, that his humanity and just this goodness just kind of seeps through that. It made my job of being his defender, his protector very easy. So it was just a very constructive environment, and I just kind of ended up using what I was feeling to inform the work as opposed to trying to impose my will on what I thought it should be.
So sounds like you built up a rapport that made it easy for you to kind of inhabit that role. And Christoph, your character's not in the book. Did you help to develop that, or did it come to you kind of fully fleshed out in the script?
What book?
Yeah.
In my book it was.
Fair point.
We are neighbors, so we went to lunch a few times to talk about it. You know. But we were jurors together in Venice, and I fell madly in love with this guy. And I said, I gotta, and we have conferences and lunches and a lot of fun. Lunches are important.
Does that answer your question?
Well, now that you've made your passion project, what's next in terms of your exploration into the world of creatures and Goth?
You know, this sort of closes a huge episode in my life. This really, really does. Like, you know, I am right now preparing a stop motion adaptation of The Very Giant, the Kazuo Ishiguro novel. And it's going to be an epic stop motion that is not going to be for kids. It's truly exploring the capacity to act of a stop motion project and fuse a world the way you would do it if it was live action. And I'm writing a project to do with Oscar. I'm writing it right now. And you know, it's called Fury. And essentially is going back to sort of the thriller aspects of Nightmare Alley. Very cruel, very violent. It's like my dinner with Andre, but killing people. You know, after each course. Because I'm very interested in the violence we do to each other. And we do it with our minds, we do it with our souls, and we do it physically. And I think it's new questions. New questions. I'm 60 now, so I've gone from asking who I am, father and son, to regret. You know, I'm in the regret decade, so expect a lot of regret.